Who are you? This area is off limits to civilians. The young soldier halted her with a firm voice. His hand hovered over the radio, ready to call for backup. Before him stood only a silver-haired woman, bent low, repairing an old transport truck at the edge of Great Ridge Base. No ID badge glinted at her waist, only a rusted toolbox and oil-stained hands. She offered no answer. Instead, she rolled up her sleeves and wiped sweat from her brow. Then, a faded silver tattoo emerged, an anchor, shattered, pierced through red waves, a symbol absent from any current military dossier, but once seen, impossible to forget. A few meters away, a SEAL operator froze in his tracks, eyes wide. He took a step back and whispered, "No way. Is that really a tattoo?" If this is true, everything we believed about Operation Tidebreak is wrong. So, what if the person you thought saved the base that day wasn't who you expected? All right, dear viewers, get ready for a story that will leave you in awe. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you truly feel what I'm sharing here, and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always thrilling to see viewers join us from every corner of the globe. Her name was Marla Jensen. She was 41 years old, short in stature with broad shoulders, her hair prematurely silver and always tucked neatly beneath a worn beanie frayed at the edges. At first glance, she was unremarkable, a woman who melted into the crowd by virtue of her quiet presence, living on the margins of major operations like a diligent shadow. Her job was to check pressure gauges and repair equipment in the base kitchen. A subcontract few gave a second thought. She arrived at dawn each day, swiped in silently, and carried her heavy toolbox into the service area. Old valves, rusted pipes, forgotten systems, that was her world. Nobody spoke her name, nobody remembered her, but the water kept flowing, and that was enough. Marla spoke little. She knew people rarely wanted to hear about what she'd endured. Day after day, she worked in silence, leaving the base just as the sun dipped low, her legacy a row of leak-free conduits behind her. That afternoon, her Dodge Ram sputtered to a stop right at the gate. Without a word of complaint, she climbed down, popped the hood, and inspected every connection. Her grease-stained hands moved with practiced ease. To her, the truck was not just a vehicle, but an extension of herself. A gate guard, perhaps accustomed to her face, allowed her to push the truck into the temporary supply yard, a hidden corner near the logistics warehouse where few thought to look. She worked in hush, no plea for help, no desire for notice. But not everyone understood such quiet dedication. A few hours later, someone reported suspicious activity near the service bay. A civilian woman tampering with military vehicles, wearing no insignia and bearing no official orders. The command came down: escort the woman off the premises. Marla offered no argument. She merely looked up, nodded, and stood. She brushed sweat from her brow, leaving a streak of gray oil across sun-tanned skin. Her long-sleeved shirt rolled up to her elbow, and in that instant, a symbol revealed itself. Perhaps she didn't realize what she'd exposed, but those nearby saw it clearly. A faded silver tattoo, crisp despite the years. An anchor broken in two, driven through a cresting wave. Not a fashion statement, not the sort you'd find in a dockside parlor. This emblem existed only in classified files, known only to those who'd walked the razor's edge between life and death. A passing special operations soldier froze, his gaze locked onto her arm and then widened in disbelief. His heart pounded, memories long buried rushed back like a cold wind. The ambient noise faded until only one question echoed in his mind. Is that a real tattoo? And Marla, standing there as always, remained calm, neither startled nor ashamed. She tightened her fingers around the wrench, accustomed, it seemed, both to being misunderstood and to the moment when silence itself became a secret that could no longer be kept. For some, that silence was what made them see her differently. But to Marla, she was simply doing what she'd always done, fixing what was broken. Even if this time it was a piece of her past she thought buried forever. Sergeant Logan Pierce, a seasoned SEAL, stood motionless. The image on that woman's arm had stopped him cold. A broken anchor, driven through a cresting wave. Not everyone had seen that tattoo, but to Logan, it was a memory etched deeper than any training exercise. He had encountered that symbol in a classified training dossier years ago. Break EO7, an elite technical support unit under Special Operations Command. A handful of tactical engineers chosen to do the impossible. Unarmed, never on the front lines like assault troops, yet deployed to the most dangerous points, where a single dead radar station could sever an entire battalion's lifeline. In 2010, in the Gulf of Aden, Break 07 was sent to a forward U.S. radar outpost. Their mission? Restore navigation systems as the area surged with suicide bomb threats. All records ceased after the final report. Station detonated. No survivors. No bodies recovered. Files were hastily sealed. The last pages classified top secret. To most service members, Break 07 did not exist. But Logan, during an unconventional tactics briefing, had seen the sole remaining satellite image from the incident. In that photo, a petite woman, her uniform singed, her skin raw with burns, yet she stooped to pull live power cables through the flames. Her bare forearm revealed a pale silver tattoo. No name was recorded, no list of survivors. But the sight haunted Logan's mind ever since. Now, here at Great Ridge Base, in this familiar supply yard, he saw that emblem again, vivid, real, inked on the flesh of a grease-stained woman who'd just been ordered off the tech apron like an outsider. Logan needed no confirmation to know this was no coincidence. Nobody donned that symbol for fashion. Only Break 07 bore it, and no one from Break 07 was supposed to be alive. A wave of disorientation washed over him, his body suspended between two eras. One part of him remained in the present, standing in uniform, a sergeant shaped by countless battlefields. The other was yanked back 15 years, to whispered rumors, buried doubts, and a quiet reverence he'd long held. He recalled a Coronado training session when a senior officer told of an unnamed engineer, the last to leave a burning radar site, leaving systems strangely operational even after her team's annihilation. She was never named. They called her Break's Phantom, and now he believed he had seen that phantom, not in stories, not in theory drills, but here and alive, grease on her hands, a silent gaze that dared time itself. She did not belong to this base. She was unlike anyone he'd ever known, but the symbol on her arm could not lie. It was the code to a buried history, an event many sought to forget or were ordered never to mention. He could not tear his eyes away from that tattoo, nor halt the questions rising in his mind. Why was she alive? Why had no one spoken her name? Where had she been all these years, when everyone believed her to have died with her unit? Each question quickened his heartbeat, and with every pulse he realized, if this was real, then everything he thought he understood about war, sacrifice, and heroism needed to be rewritten. He remained frozen, silent, unmoving, his eyes fixed on that tattoo that had shattered the distance between legend and reality, between what happened and what no one dared believe ever did. Sergeant Logan Pierce said nothing. He left the vehicle yard, the echo of his boots fading behind him. Curious glances and that faded silver tattoo burned into his memory. What had just transpired made it impossible to stand still, or to pretend it was mere coincidence. He strode straight to his office in the command center, closed the door, powered up his console, and accessed the secure channel reserved for rare emergency missions. In less than 30 minutes, a response arrived. A secure link and an access code he'd never imagined using again. On screen appeared the message. Tidebreak 07, Technical Support Unit. Status, all KIA. But beneath it, locked behind deeper encryption, was a single line of annotation. Exception. Unidentified engineer. Last logged on day 18 in radar bunker. Signal lost. Logan's eyes scanned each word. His heartbeat slowed as if every phrase reverberated inside him, forcing him to confront what his instincts already knew. That woman, the one fixing her truck with grease-blackened hands, was no ordinary contractor. She was the last remnant of a mission everyone dared not speak of. An attachment popped up. The final medical report on that unnamed engineer. He read every line as though swallowing a lump in his throat. Polytrauma, third-degree burns over more than 60% of body, soft tissue infection, circulatory collapse. Patient continued operating and maintaining navigation systems under continuous artillery fire. No withdrawal signal received. Final status, missing. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, fingers clenching the desk as if to anchor himself in reality. His mind raced. How could any human endure that? And what drove her to keep going when her body was collapsing by the minute? Logan had no doubt now. That woman was the last soul standing between hell and the fallen members of Break 07. A living witness, and a pain long ignored. She had kept those systems online for 18 days under fire when every other soul was lost. She was the forgotten part of a mission erased from every lesson plan, every report, every memorial speech. And now she lived among them, like any other technician, surviving, yet never truly welcomed back, never called by her name. All that remained was a tattoo, a memory, and a file sealed behind 3 layers of security. Logan felt something slip from his grasp, a silent shame, not just for himself, but for a system that lauded sacrifice yet quietly buried those who didn't fit the mold. He pictured that woman in the bunker's darkness, her scorched hands still turning the final bolts. No one stayed behind. No one was ordered to stay. But she did not leave. And that act, uncredited, unreported, undocumented, had kept the lifeline intact, kept rescue calls from going dark. Logan's feeling was no longer astonishment. It was recognition, a swell of emotion entwined with a respect he could scarcely name. He had thought he knew courage, but now that definition was rewritten by a woman bearing a silver tattoo, surviving in silence, never once demanding to be remembered. He had no choice now. He needed to find her, not to confront her, not to verify facts, but to understand why someone who'd endured so much would choose to return as though she'd never existed. And if he didn't act now, the past would be erased again, this time by his own silence. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or grab a glass of water because the story's twists aren't over yet. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always thrilling to see you joining us from around the world. Comment number 1 if you're enjoying the story so we can keep bringing you more great tales. Marla stepped into the makeshift command center. No fear flickered in her eyes, no hint of defiance. Only resignation lay plain upon her face. She stood before the table, hands clasped, shoulders slightly hunched, as if accustomed to carrying an invisible burden. No one needed to speak. Every gaze in the room fixed upon her. She did not look back, only exhaled slowly, as though releasing decades of weight from her chest. Logan was the first to break the silence. His voice was soft, devoid of an interrogator's edge, more like someone seeking a lost puzzle piece. One question, simple, direct. Had she ever been with Tidebreak? She nodded. A single, quiet motion. No drama, no regret. Then, in a measured tone, she told them what none of them had ever been permitted to hear. She had been on medical leave at the time, a knee injury not fully healed, no official orders, no one expecting her return. Yet when the distress call rang out, no one was nearer, no one else could have answered. She knew the navigation system like the back of her hand. She understood that if it collapsed, the task force would lose command, lose support, lose their lives. So she went back. No orders, no one aware. She took only her toolbox, a canteen, and an electronic map. She descended into the bunker, dressed her swollen knee, and set to work in the dark. No one followed her. She bore no resentment. Everyone had their reasons for staying away. She spoke little of what came next. She did not recount the intensity of the shelling, nor detail how far the burns tracked up her skin, nor how her fingers trembled as she tightened the final bolts on raw nerve endings. She said simply, she did what had to be done. When the system came back online and the navigation signal steadied, she believed she had saved them, but when she emerged from the bunker, they were all gone. The base lay emptied, no voices, no movement. She stood amid that void, clutching her bloodied arm, and realized there was nowhere left for her to return. Logan did not interrupt. No one did. In the lingering hush, something shattered in the minds of those present. Not pity, but wrenching conflict. For years, she had lived as if she did not exist, while they, knowingly or not, moved on as though her sacrifice had never occurred. After a time, Logan asked why she had not come back, not for medals, only for acknowledgement, to be called by her name. The question seemed simple, yet it struck the deepest chord within Marla. She did not respond with anger, nor with sorrow. She bowed her head and spoke a truth few could fathom. Because I have no one left to come home to. Her answer, brief, struck Logan like a silent blow. He thought of every memorial service he had attended, every name carved in stone, every stirring speech in a plaza, and of her, who had kept the system alive for 18 days, vanishing without so much as a line in any record. She continued, her voice a passing breeze. I did not want to become a symbol. Then she looked up. That gaze bore no fear, no sadness, only a profound calm. I just wanted to live as an ordinary person, while doing extraordinary work. No one replied. There was nothing more to be said. Logan knew from that moment on that all his notions of honor, of titles, of how memories are kept, had been irrevocably changed. She stood there, needing no remembrance, yet for that very reason she was the one they could never forget. There was no public ceremony, no official announcement. The base chose silence, just as the woman they'd uncovered did. Her name was not entered into the system, not carved on the honor roll, not spoken at any memorial service. Yet those who had witnessed her could never see her the same way again. From that day forward, a small but unmistakable change took hold. A maintenance outpost hidden behind the hangars was quietly renamed. Not on the internal maps, not mentioned in any staff meeting, but scrawled in hand-etched letters on a peeling steel door. Anchor Station. No one asked who had carved it. No one removed it. The young soldiers who passed by afterward looked upon it differently. They began to understand that some people kept things alive without needing a name in any record. Gradually, during late-night watches and in urgent technical briefings, a new phrase emerged: Initiate Marla 07 Protocol. It became shorthand for emergency measures. Creative workarounds that flew in the face of standard procedure even contradicted the technical manual, yet delivered astonishing results. No one really explained where the term had originated, only that whenever equipment failed, systems went dark, and every normal solution had been tried. That name resurfaced. It carried no precise technical meaning. It was a prompt to never give up, to keep repairing long after everything else had fallen apart. Marla herself never suggested her name. She never knew how far the story had spread. She continued her work as before, checking pressures, welding old joints, replacing corroded filters. She still arrived early and left late, quietly, precisely. But now, when she walked past the corridor leading to the power station, people nodded to her, not out of rank, but out of unspoken recognition. In the base chow hall, the tale circulated. No drama, no grand heroics, just a whispered account of a woman who had kept a radar station online for 18 days with nothing but her bare hands, no spare parts, no backup crew, that a task force of trained specialists could not have survived, yet she had. At first, not everyone believed it. Some called it exaggeration. But those who had handled the classified files, or whose friends had been lost with that unit, offered no denial. They only fell silent, as though no further proof was necessary. The remarkable thing wasn't that she survived. It was that once she did, she chose to return as a shadow, speaking no word, making no claim, offering no self-introduction. She performed the small tasks, the very tasks on which entire operations depended. In new recruit technical training, instructors began slipping in an unofficial line. If you encounter a system so broken it seems beyond repair, ask an engineer. If that engineer shakes her head, ask yourself, what would Marla do? No one forced them to remember, yet the name endured, like a silent program running in the collective memory. No updates needed, no publicity required. It existed because they needed it, when there was no other choice. Marla never knew her story had become that quiet standard, but even if she had known, she likely would have only shrugged. She had never worked for honors. She simply refused to let what kept running stop running. And perhaps that, in itself, was the highest tribute any person could receive. Not a title, but the choice of others to live, to work, and to repair in her footsteps. 3 months after the incident at the base, when everything seemed to settle and her name was fading into unpublicized files, a historic blizzard swept across Colorado. Roads froze, communications went dark, and civilian zones faced evacuation. A veterans hospital on the outskirts of Boulder lost all power. Backup generators failed, medical devices ground to a halt, and the emergency ward teetered on the brink of catastrophe. No one called for her. No one remembered her name. But Marla appeared, unannounced, silent, armed only with her familiar toolbox, her worn coveralls, and eyes unflinching in the face of chaos. She demanded no help, offered no explanation. While doctors panicked over blankets and warming packs, she slipped into the mechanical room. Burnt wires, frozen control panels, battery banks cold and useless as steel blocks. She began with the smallest tasks, removing each connector, blowing dust from every circuit with her breath, re-establishing every contact with her bare hands. For 60 straight hours, without sleep, barely stepping outside the tech bay, she revived each failed component, rebooted the heating system, kept the ward from plunging below safe temperatures. She did not wait for thanks. She did not expect any. No camera captured her. No reporter arrived. Only a handful of nurses glimpsed her silhouette passing down the corridor, clutching a coil of cable, eyes rimmed red from exhaustion. They dared not ask questions, only knew that after 2.5 days the heat roared back to life. Every patient stayed warm. No one died. When asked who had fixed it, the doctors only shook their heads. Without her, we lost everything. A few days later, rumors began to spread. Young engineers heard the tale through military medical circles. At first they scoffed, then they nodded, for they had heard of her. Not through bulletins, not in manuals, but by word of mouth, like a slow ember in winter. If something seems beyond repair, remember the woman with the broken anchor tattoo. She wasn't a statue to be unveiled, yet she became the embodiment of a spirit that never quits, a presence that compels others not to turn away in the darkest hour. No medal was offered, but when new engineers took their oaths, many quietly sketched an anchor emblem on the inside cover of their notebooks, as a reminder that some lessons aren't taught in class but lived in action. Perhaps most of the world will never know her name. Yet the systems still humming when they should have died, the patients saved on the coldest night, the bases that stayed connected when everything else failed, all bear her mark. She needed no recognition, and so she cannot be forgotten. Marla's story doesn't end with a ceremony. It continues with the next act. Another technician at another base, choosing to stay one more hour through the night. Another engineer, while the team is on leave, silently repairing the ventilation at the faintest squeal of distress, doing not for glory but because someone once chose to do the same. And maybe, in an upcoming training session, a recruit will hear the instructor say, "There are heroes who never make the headlines. But if ever you see a system collapse, everyone else walk away, and you still want to try one last time, do it the Marla way." That is what we believe. And if you feel the same, help spread her story. Don't forget to subscribe. Drop a comment below telling us where and when you're watching from. It would mean a lot if you shared this video with your friends and family in the US, because maybe they too have passed a silent hero like Marla. Thank you for your time. And if you see something broken, try fixing it, because the smallest act you do today may be the reason someone is alive tomorrow.